Hey, what is up guys, iDev here, and today we're going to be looking at the basics of creating your first game in Unity. What you see in the screen now is what we're going to be making in this series. It's very simple and it's very similar to a famous mobile game called AA, which is pretty fun to play. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So without further ado, let's get into it. So when you first open up Unity, you see something just like this. You see your projects here, and we're just gonna create a new project and we're gonna call it AA game. And then instead of choosing 3D, we choose 2D and pick a location for your project and just hit create project, and Unity will do its thing. So after Unity opens up, you see something just like this. If you're new to Unity, this interface might look a lot complex here, but let me point out some things. So this is the scene view here. This is the place where you will be putting all your game objects and stuff. So you can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and zoom out, and you can use your mouse, middle mouse button to pan around. That's pretty much it with this. This is the hierarchy here. All your game objects in the scene show up in here. As you can see, we have a main camera by default here, and the properties of this main camera show up in the inspector. And this is the project panel here. This is where you will import your assets like sprites, 3D models, music, audio, and all the stuff in here. And this is the game view. This is how your game will look in game. You can just hit play here and test out your game, but at the moment there's nothing in our game. So first off, what I want to do is I want to just change this boring blue background. So while selecting the main camera, you can see the background, and I'm just going to change it to white. It looks better. And then what I want to create is I want to create that circle here which rotates all the time. So we need some kind of image. So first off, we can right click on the hierarchy and this window will pop up. We can just create a 2D object and sprite, and this will create a sprite. We don't have any image, so it doesn't show any image. We can just rename the sprite. I'm going to rename it to maybe circle. So let's call it circle and then hit enter. We need some kind of sprite, so I made this simple ball image here, which is a simple circle. So we're just gonna drag and drop this in the assets folder here. It's just a simple black circle. So in the sprite here, you can see here it says none. We're just gonna drag and drop the ball image here. By the way, I'll link to this ball image in the description if you want, but any ball image will do. So we're just gonna resize it a little bit, and this looks good. So in the transform here, you can see its position on the X, Y, and Z. I wanted X position to be in the center, so let's put 0 here, and in the Y let's put 1, or maybe 1.5 will do, or maybe even 2. No, let's do 1.8. You should spend much more time than I do. So let's now what I want to create is I want to create a spawn point where our pins will from where we'll throw our pins. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I can't talk today. So let's create another 2D object and sprite. We're gonna use the same image here, and I'm going to resize it quite a bit. This looks bad. This is okay. Oops, I just undocked my scene here. I'm sorry. Let's zoom in and just resize it. That's okay. So let's put our X position to 0 again, and then our Y position to 0.3, or nope, -2, -3, and -3.2. That's just okay. Now what I like to do is I'll just like to decrease the opacity in here. It just feels better. But currently we have our circle here where we will throw our pins into, but it doesn't have any collider. I mean, if we just now throw pins in the circle, it will just pass through. So we need some kind of collider. By the way, these collapsible objects are called components. We can add a new component by hitting on this add component button, which I'm going to do. And let's go to physics 2D, and there we have our circle collider 2D. Now after we add this, we see this green outline. So now our circle will collide with other objects which has colliders, of course, and with this green outline. What I like to do is I just like to decrease the radius a little bit. It just feels better in game. So now we have our circle and our spawn point. I'm just going to rename our spawn point to something like spawner. You can rename it whatever you want. And we have our circle collider here. I'm just going to duplicate it. Now we're going to make our pin. Okay, so I duplicate it by right click and duplicate, and let's rename this to pin, and let's make our pin here. So let's resize it. Let's see, this is okay, this is okay. And now we need that sharp edge of it. So if we just click on pin and just right click and create another 2D object, you can see the new 2D object is created under the pin. This is called a child object. So this new 2D object is the child of this pin. So wherever we move this pin, the child object will move with it. So that's a pretty cool thing. I don't have any sharp thing here, so I'm just gonna choose a default Unity knob. This is a very low quality sprite. You can double click on it to focus on it. First off, let's make it black, and then we can just maybe stretch it up to make it sharp. That's not the best way to do it. If you have a good sprite, you can just use that, which I do recommend you to do. This is just fine. And now let's just call it, we don't have to name it anything, but let's just call it edge. Oops, let's call it edge and just hit enter here. Now we don't have any collider on it. First off, we don't need this bottom part, so I'm just gonna try to collapse it, and then let's add a component on it. Let's hit on add component, physics 2D, and we can add a box collider 2D, and you can see this outline here. Now as you can see, the outline actually passes it, so we can hit on this edit collider here, and let's just drag it in, and let's just drag it out, and that is just perfect. So we have our circle, we have our pin, we have our spawn point. In the next episode, we'll start programming our game. We'll make this circle rotate. Also, we'll figure out some way of spawning this pin to the circle, and we'll learn about rigid body and all the add force and all this stuff. So before we end this episode, what I want you to do is go to file and then save your scene. Make sure you save your scene or you'll just lose all your progress. I'm just gonna call this scene main level and hit enter, and you can see your scene appears in the project panel. So that's about it for this video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button, and if you're new, consider subscribing and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.